So I came to the conclusion that Elden Ring is the peak of a game experience. And I mean, the game takes every single great feature from every single great title ever released until nowadays and puts all of this feature into one game in a way that they communicate with each other perfectly, creating a beautiful harmony that even people who refused to play a Souls-like became a fan of the genre. And that's something never seen before. And although not being in my top 5 games of all time list, I have to admit that Elden Ring is an experience we've never seen before. And beyond that, an experience we'd never imagined we could achieve at some point in life. I mean, I basically lived my whole life playing video games to finally get the type of experience. But for me to tell you why I came to that conclusion, I think we better go back in time. Video games started with a simple proposition. You grab a Joy-Con, press some button, and something happens on the screen. And what happens on the screen is what is gonna define the level of amusement and fun that you're gonna have with the video game. So no other title could be better to represent that whole concept if not Mario Bros, in my opinion. Even because video games at that time was all about gameplay. People did not want to know about the story or the character, the emotions, because if they did want to know about those things, they would watch a movie, right? I may be a little bit ignorant by saying this, but honestly, I feel like video games at that time were more of a gameplay thing, and not like it is today, something that you want to immerse yourself into the whole story created by someone. And I mean, how could you immerse yourself into a platform pixel game where you can only walk to 2 different directions and jump? And don't misunderstand me, when I say immersion, I mean truly immersion, feeling that you're living the character's life, you know. But well, that's not the point here. What I'm saying is that Mario Bros took those developed titles from before, learned from it, and created a new concept of gameplay, where it evolves the whole concept from before into a whole nother level, enhancing the platformer genre and making it popular, you know. No wonder that every single platform game that release reminds you of Mario Bros somehow. And I mean, every single concept of what we call gameplay was basically defined by this little Italian guy, bro. The need of a button for movement, a button for interaction, and another button for combat. Also, all the concepts of level design were defined here, because before Mario Bros, video games were just a competition of who scores higher, you know. But Mario came to the market and defined what is a stage, what is a boss fight, and also it defined how this level design will make such a simple act as pressing a button get complex, since you cannot play Mario Bros repeatedly pressing the same buttons brainlessly without getting punished somehow. I mean, you basically have 2 simple commands for you to complete a stage: walk and jump. The combat is just a consequence for exploring. But even so, the gameplay is too simple, you gotta press the right button at the right time, creating flow and dynamic to the whole gameplay. That's why Mario Bros will always be remembered in our world. But ever since people started developing video games, they knew one thing: that gameplay was not the only thing that matters in a video game, since it must have a reason for you to play. And just like I said, I don't think immersion was the kind of reason at the time. And that's where we'll get a little bit more into the future and explore the other essential feature for a video game: the difficulty. People has always been comparing the difficulty of nowadays titles to the older titles like Ninja Gaiden, for example, and saying how video games became way more easier, lacking a little bit of challenge sometimes. And well, that's true. With the advance of the modern world, a game has everything to make your playthrough enjoyable and easier, like autosave, ways to change the difficulties, rules on the game programming that stops the enemies of attacking you all at once, and many other features that make a game way more easier. But I don't think that change occurred just because people could handle the difficulty as time passed. In my vision, it occurred because today people has more reason of why to play a video game. Because just like I said, back in the day, everything was purely based on the gameplay, and what made someone keep engaging to a game until he finished was basically the challenge the game could offer him. I mean, the reward reception of when you overcome a hard stage or a hard boss, when you beat a game after hours of a playthrough, to is somehow addictive, you know? Even because that's just how life works. You complete a challenge in your life, you become satisfied, but look for more challenge afterwards. In a video game, it cannot be different for that, you know? Now, as I was saying before, Ninja Gaiden, for example, was a title that did not take easier on the player. I think it's fair to say that Ninja Gaiden was remarkable and a good definition of difficulty. I mean, the game keeps putting you into a constant state of awareness as any enemy can appear on the screen at any time. It does not make things fair by timing those enemies, just like many games do today. Like 3 mobs can appear to fuck you up in a blink and you have to take a decision in a short period of time. And you may say like, but 3 mobs is kinda little, right? Well, not for Ninja Gaiden, not for Ninja Gaiden. The game really took the whole concept of pressing the right button at the right time and elevated it to a whole nother level. Like in Mario Bros, you still could breathe a little bit before doing any kind of action. In Ninja Gaiden, you cannot breathe for any moment. Just like I said, the game is putting you in constant danger every fucking time. And even so, here you have a way of attacking the enemies without the need of a power-up. It does not make things easier. Also, Ninja Gaiden shows the truth challenge of what a boss fight should be. A moment of a little bit of despair, where if you die you go back to the beginning of the stage, having to face all the enemies you were struggling before, just to get back to the boss. The game naturally teaches you to become a better version of yourself, and that's exactly what the concept of difficulty means. A way to make you become a better version of yourself. But just like everything in life, video games also had to evolve. That's where we'll jump some years in the future and look at a unique concept created by a specific franchise. Zelda Ocarina of Time has always been acclaimed as one of the best, if not the best game of all times. And well, that's not by accident. I mean, Zelda took those 2 concepts I was talking before, mastered it, and introduced a third element of what I call the essential pillars of a video game, the immersion. And I'm not trying to mean that Zelda was the first immersive game to ever exist, but it certainly elevated the pattern, you know? I mean, with the change of the 2D era to the 3D era, people could finally feel more immersed into a video game and feel like they're living the life of the main character. And I don't know why, but the visual alongside the pace and the soundtrack of Zelda makes the game strangely immersive, you know. And not only that, but here the storytelling became something serious to be part of a game. Like people saw potential of spreading their stories in an interactable way, which is the case of a video game, you know. But what I think really amazed the people in Zelda was not only those features, but it was something that only Zelda apparently knew how to do it right, until Elden Ring, of course. And I'll call this something a place for discovery. What do I mean? Well, let me ask you a simple question. Do you know how Miyamoto-san had the idea of creating The Legend of Zelda? Well, he tells stories that he used to walk in the forest as a kid and was always finding beautiful lakes, rivers, and caves. And the simple feeling of discovering something new, kind of lost in the forest, made him always amazed, you know. So once he thought of creating a new IP for Nintendo, he wanted to create a game that reproduced those feelings of discovery into the player. And so did Miyamoto, giving birth to an amazing franchise. And that's exactly why I call it a place for discovery. Because besides all the game features The Legend of Zelda offers the player, it is also a place for discovery. Think like this: most games experience are basically a pathway with walls on the side that doesn't let you get out of the path, so you just keep following this linear trail to the end, you know. And Zelda has just the same path, but without the walls. At the same time that you can follow the path to get to your destination, you can also look to your right, see a castle and wonder, what if I go there? And you can actually go there. Then maybe you find something good, maybe you find something not that good, something awful, but what really mattered at the end was that you found something new, you know, and that feeling somehow rewards you enough. So it's no doubt that The Legend of Zelda created this unique concept, and it was perfectly explored in Ocarina of Time, because it is a concept that fits perfectly into a 3D game, since you don't have only 2 directions to go, and also you have a vast view of the world, because unfortunately, still the game have limitations, you know. But well, although Zelda was a hit, and a game out of this world released at the time, video games could still evolve. And now I'm gonna talk about another great feature, of which in my opinion is greatly explored in this franchise, that until some years ago was not famous, you know. It was pretty underrated. Monster Hunter got the recognition it deserved with Monster Hunter World. Until that game, little did people knew about this amazing franchise. And what I think makes this title incredible is the fact that every monster you hunt will be a big challenge, of which at first sight you feel too little against that enormous monster in front of you, but at the same time you feel capable enough of beating the monster. It gives you that feeling of being capable, you know. I mean, Monster Hunter takes the concept of a boss fight and executes it perfectly as what it should be. A big challenge of which you feel truly rewarded. I mean, unless you're crazy enough to try to beat the game with the first gear, you'll have to be constantly upgrading your gear. And the only way to do so is by defeating those big challenges. Monster that takes unimaginable proportions, intimidating you just by the visual, you know. Monsters that just by the look makes you wish for its armor set. And unlike many other titles, every single monster you face will feel like a complete different experience from the others, even those from the same species. And even so, you'll only be fighting against monsters, the game still defines its bosses as elder dragons, creatures that makes you feel absolutely like nothing, but when slayed, that feeling grows to a feeling of I'm capable of anything. So I have no doubt that Monster Hunter will always carry the definition of boss fight for me. But well, until now we only see an example of gameplay and difficulty. It's time to show an example of true immersion defined by this tiny company that I think almost nobody knows about it, right? And probably don't have such an impact in the gaming world. I think Rockstar Game came to this world just to show the companies what an extreme immersive experience looks like. And we know that GTA 3 was already an innovation, nobody thought it was possible to exist at the time. But then Rockstar comes and hits us again with Vice City. And not satisfied, they come again, scrub our faces into a wall called GTA San Andreas, presenting us with an absolute masterpiece in every aspect. I mean, GTA San Andreas showed the market that video games are not only a way of entertaining kids, but a way of expressing art just like a movie. It completely defined the open world genre without feeling repetitive and boring like Ubisoft titles. It showed that a game can use great actors to interpret great characters. GTA San Andreas showed how reality can be ironically portrayed, criticizing absurd events that occur in our world through a simple media like video game. I mean, at that point, video games was already not only made for kids or nerds, you know, it was a media for everyone. And what's really incredible about GTA San Andreas is that it shows how immersive you can get by playing a video game, how a well-built scenario and environment can immerse you into a digital world, make you forget the fact that you are only pressing some buttons in a fucking controller, bro. It makes you forget the problems that you're having in life, which I don't recommend you forget the problems that you're having. You gotta face them, but sometimes you're so overwhelmed that you need a way of running away from reality, and that became possible with video games immersion. Honestly, San Andreas has so much to offer the player that even if you decide to play nowadays, you forget about the low graphic and get completely immersed. It shows that you don't need amazing graphics to enjoy a game. The graphics are basically the least of it. I mean, GTA San Andreas feels way more immersive than a lot of AAA games that has been released over the couple of years, bro. And also, GTA San Andreas shows the real concept of having freedom in an open world. So I think it's impossible to mention immersion in video games without mentioning GTA San Andreas. I mean, it was not the first immersive game to ever exist, but it was the one that changed everything. It was the peak of immersion in 2005. That game was completely out of this world and a truly definition of immersion. And you know what else was made to immerse people into a fantasy world? Tabletop RPGs. I mean, the genre RPG could not be apart from the gaming world. It had to become a thing at some point, you know? And it did. Tons of RPG titles started releasing for the good old consoles, but normally they will be turn-based, and not everyone likes this kind of genre, since it can feel pretty slow-paced for most people, you know? But obviously, over the years, action RPG started to become a thing in the market, but it's still not everybody gave a shit for them. Until in 2011, we had a twist in the market with the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. It is no secret that tabletop RPG was a way of amusement that existed way before the video games. I mean, a tabletop game where everything you need was a pen, a paper, and the greatest joystick we could ever have, imagination. But how would that be greatly adapted into an actual game? Well, the question honestly is answered with Skyrim. The role-playing of creating your own story, your own adventure without having to follow a script is the kind of freedom RPG offers us. And I think that above the leveling systems, RPG are primarily defined by this freedom of adventure. A feeling that instead of living the life of a scripted character, you're building your own script through a character created by you. No wonders of why we normally prefer RPG without a voice dubbing in the main character. Because we wanna dub him ourselves, you know. We wanna feel the kind of immersion of being the world, you know. And I honestly think that it was way easier to create an RPG using a turn-based game, since tabletop RPG are primarily based on turn-based combat and actions. I mean, I'm not trying to take away the merit, obviously. The turn-based RPG are awesome, you know. But Skyrim has showed us that it was possible to introduce the genre into an action game dynamically and with a decent gameplay. I mean, Skyrim made the RPG genre become popular. How many people started playing RPG after Skyrim? And how many companies started to insert RPG elements in their game just because of Skyrim, you know? Even though sometimes it's so poorly made that it would be better if they did not have it. It is not a coincidence that every single company tried to imitate Skyrim afterwards. Skyrim gives you the choice to play in the way you want to. I mean, you wanna be Gandalf, so be it. You wanna be a Viking, so be it. You wanna be any fucking character, so be it. You can be anything you want and play in any way you want. You don't need to be entirely following the main quest line, you know. And although we had amazing titles before Skyrim, like Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines as an example, Skyrim was the one title that defined action RPGs. But unfortunately, as things start growing, people start to see a way of making anything profitable. And we cannot judge, you know. I mean, even because people need to feed their homes at the end of the day. But the real problem resides on the place where they forget the real meaning of everything they're doing and start doing it just for the money, surpassing the needing and entering the greediness zone. And we are currently living this era, bro. But it's just like I heard once. For every villain, there's a hero. And when the gaming market started to get too greedy, we had the ascension of the indie market and the emphasis of artistic games. That's when in 2015, a title made by one single person was able to shock a world. You know what's incredible about art is the fact that absolutely everything has a little bit of art in it, and how we can communicate with each other through art. Now, you may say that you don't like art in general, which I think it's impossible honestly, because art is not only limited to movie, paint and music, just like everyone thinks. Art can be anything that was created based on feelings. It's basically a way to express yourself through a creation, and video games are no different from that, because people put their lives in it, because people put their sweat in it. People work hard to create those titles, you know. And I think it's incredible how art can beat budget. I mean, how could a game like Undertale, developed by one single person, made such a noise among giant productions like Witcher 3, Arcanite, Fallout 4, and other AAA titles of 2015. How among orchestrated soundtracks of the year with insane budgets, the soundtrack that we still remember is from Undertale. Like, how many times have you found a video with at least one song from Undertale? That's not a coincidence. Undertale shows the amount of love Toby Fox had by creating such a masterpiece. The game carries an absolutely beautiful message about determination and friendship with simple pixeled characters. It showed how above every single feature that games should have, passion is the most important. The passion of expressing your feelings into the game. A passion of which keep people engaged into developing a game for years, not knowing if it's gonna be a success or not, because they believe in it, you know? A passion that goes beyond any fucking reason. I mean, a passion that is echoed in our heart and in our souls. And like, just an example, my favorite soundtracks from video games are mostly from indie titles, because I can feel what the composer wants to say through a song. And even so, most of these developers have such a low budget, they manage to create beautiful scenarios, art design, and immersion without having millions of dollars to spend on graphics. It's purely passion and artistic. So I cannot end this video without mentioning artistic games. They are a big matter to us, and will always be. And Undertale is the definition of an artistic game. A game made by one single person that sold millions of copies as a consequence of the passion Toby Fox put in his game. It's truly a masterpiece. Now, with the advance of the technology, video games started to evolve into a cinematic level and become literally an interactable movie with titles like Beyond Souls, Heavy Rain, Detroit Become Human, and many others. But the title that really took the whole concept to another level is again from the same little company from before, and I'm talking about Red Dead Redemption 2. Cinema is probably the biggest entertaining media we have nowadays. I mean, movies with insane productions of which were unimaginable until the year of 2000. We have movies that become part of our cultures and movies that traumatize us. This media carries so many value to us that it's almost impossible for someone not to have at least one favorite movie in their life. And with the recognition of the gaming world, people started to look at video games as another type of cinema. Like, as time passes, the acting video game stops being just a way of actors to earn some money and is turning into also a way of earning respect in the market. No wonder that games are becoming extremely cinematic over the years, and the only thing that still created a barrier between the cinema and the video game was somehow the graphics and the judgment of people. But once again, Rockstar Games showed the world that it's possible to elevate a cinematic experience in a video game with Red Dead Redemption 2. Bro, I mean, this game don't exist. It is completely out of this world. Like, it has scenarios that can easily become a wallpaper since this entire game looks like a playable cutscene, actors that are beyond acting skills, a story worthy of many permeations, and characters that makes you get into an emotional roller coaster. And unlikely titles like Heavy Rain, where the proposition was to be an interactable movie, but you don't have total control of the character with the freedom to move him anytime, being more of a cutscene than a game. Red Dead Redemption 2 gives you the freedom of gameplay without losing the charm of being a cinematic experience. Red Dead Redemption 2 is the pure definition of an interactable movie. Now take everything I just said, every single concept from each one of these titles, going from the gameplay to the cinematic experience, mix them all together, adding a secret ingredient called Dark Souls, and you'll see the peak of video game, Elden Ring. every single one of these features were developed for years of experiences, years of up and downs to finally get to be explored all at once in a single game. Elden Ring carries the hard work of those who made their best to provide all of us the best type of experience we could ever have in a video game. It takes each one of these concepts and perfectly creates a harmony among them. The gameplay feels dynamic and unique at the same time, easily learned but hardly mastered. And although it has the same vibes of Dark Souls, the pacing feels completely different, and the adding of a simple act like jumping entirely changed the whole dynamic. The difficulty is hard enough to make you struggle in every single battle, but at the same time, the freedom you have to explore makes it optional the amount of times you're gonna struggle against the enemy, since you can always leave it to get stronger and go back for a proper challenge, and it gives you a reason for you to be worried about dying many times, with the same mechanic seen on From Software's older titles. The game is the literal of a pathway without a wall, where everything on the surroundings catches your attention, always giving you the feeling of discovery. It has bosses who completely shivers down your spine, offering insane boss fights that looks like it came out of an anime, ending with an indefinable satisfaction at the moment you give the last hit. Its world managed to immerse you into a fantasy reality of which it feels unreal the entire time you're walking on it, give you the desire for more and more of the world. The power you have to create any type of character who can finish its adventure with the most insane weapons and in the most insane ways possible, where the entire time you feel like one with your own creation, turns Elden Ring into an unforgettable RPG experience. The fact that every single view from any place and any angle looks like a painting crafted by the hands of a master shows how much inspired were the creators when they crafted this masterpiece. And finally, the way its cinematics are extremely epic, lasting long enough for you to know what kind of challenges you're facing, going to the real fight that just couldn't feel more cinematic than ever without leaving the gameplay aside, is just incredible. And all of that is happening at the same time that the game don't forget its original roots, planted way back in time with Demon Souls. Just like I said, Elden Ring carries years of gaming, reaching the peak of this gigantic mountain, and honestly the only game that can probably reach the top again is GTA 6. But still, it is not gonna take its place, even because they are both completely different titles, you know. But that was why I think Elden Ring is the peak of a gaming experience, the peak of video game. Thank you all for watching this video. Like and subscribe to the channel to help me out, and once again, until someday.